Here we go. We've got Clint with another Big 12 hot take. Clint says, hot take, Baylor will fill up their stadium for every home game. Baylor has got an excellent home schedule this year. We'll pull it up because you make a great point there. Baylor has an awesome home schedule. They've got Auburn, first of all, right out of the chute. I would imagine that game's going to be pretty filled up. They've got Arizona State at home. Prime Big 12 contender. Defending champs. They've got K-State at home. I mean, the first three of the first four home games are Auburn, Arizona State, and K-State. It's about as good as you can get from a season ticket value standpoint. Yeah, there's a game with Samford mixed in there. But Auburn, Arizona State, and K-State. Come on, man. You've got UCF, who, media poll, unofficial media poll, they were picked last. But then you have Utah at home. Then there's a game at the end of the year against Houston. And if Houston is what Clint thinks they will be, that would be a big game too. But the games right now that you look at the home schedule and say those will be bangers. Auburn, Arizona State, K-State, Utah. I mean, Utah is the betting favorite in some markets. K-State was picked by the coaches and the unofficial media poll to win the Big 12. Arizona State's the defending champ. Auburn is Auburn from the SEC and what some people consider a dark horse SEC contender this year. So it's a tremendous home schedule. Big 12 needs fuller stadiums across the board. SEC has this advantage. Well, Big 12 just has smaller stadiums across the board as well. But yeah, Baylor's the type of place that needs to be filled up, needs to be better. Look, Baylor football, when it was, you hate to say it, a lot of bad things happened, but the Art Briles era at the peak of it, Baylor football was a really, really great entity. Would love to see Baylor get back to something like that, get the fans back in there for sure. For sure. Rise and Shout. What's up, Rise and Shout? Thank you, by the way, Clint. Rise and Shout's guess for best conference game this year is Farmageddon. So the best conference game will be the first conference game and the one that's played before week 1 even comes around. We've got week 0, Farmageddon. Or are you saying, Rise and Shout, that you agree with the Big 12 coaches who were polled by Brett McMurphy, who said K-State and Iowa State would match up in the Big 12 championship game to get Farmageddon round 2? The stress levels for your boy here, if K-State and Iowa State were playing a round 2 in Arlington for a Big 12 championship and spot in the playoff potentially, oh boy, I would be a stressed individual, ladies and gentlemen. I would be a stressed individual about that game, but it would be fun. Obviously, it would be awesome. Okay. Thank you, Rise and Shout. That's good. I'm guessing that's kind of a hot take here that you're submitting. I would say that's warm. It's definitely warm. I think, I heard Josh Pate say he picks Arizona State, Texas Tech as Big 12 game of the year. That's absolutely on the list. That's definitely in the mix. I wouldn't argue if you think that is going to be Big 12 game of the year. I mean, if you're going by the fact that the betting markets think Utah is the conference favorite and K-State has been picked by coaches and unofficial media polls to win the Big 12, K-State at Utah toward the end of the year would be a huge game. You've definitely got some options, but I like it, Rise and Shout. I like it. David, good to see you, David. Thank you for being here. David says Kirby Smart came out and said 9 conference games is good for money, good for fans, good for TV, but bad for college football playoff spots. They can schedule big SEC teams. Vandy and the Sooners for wins. Roll Tide, LOL. Yeah, you're right. Ask good old Kalen DeBoer how that goes. Kalen DeBoer, by the way, I do think it was funny. People were getting after him, and I think this is like, look, I am going to join in chuckling a bit here at Kalen DeBoer, but I also respect what he is saying when he was touting, hey, look, man, we have Florida State and Wisconsin this year on our non-con schedule. Like, we're not ducking anybody. But people pointed out those two teams combined to go 7-17 last year. So, yeah, I mean, right now it's, maybe not the best timing for that comment, but in general, I'm going to, guys, I will give Alabama respect for scheduling Florida State and Wisconsin. I will give them the respect that is probably due and deserved for scheduling those games. That they deserve that. It's not their fault that Florida State had an otherworldly terrible year last year and Wisconsin's just kind of been blah. Someone floated out. Where was I listening to that? And I heard it the other day. They were like, is Luke Fickell going to wind up back at Cincinnati? How about that? How about that for a Big 12 hot take? Luke Fickell back at Cincinnati next year, gets canned at Wisconsin. Scott Satterfield continues to flounder, and since he gets rid of Satterfield, I know that there's I've heard people talk about like buyout issues there or whatever. But if Luke Fickell is there, like, hey, I'll be your Scott Frost. I'll be your Rich Rod. Let me come back. Huh? Cincinnati, who says no? Everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it in the Big 12 right now. Jump on board, my friends. Jump on board. I would very much enjoy that, to have Luke Fickell back in the league. Anyway, I'm getting way off topic here. Look, Kirby Smart's right. I mean, it's 9 conference games would definitely be good for TV. I mean, TV would love that, which in turn means it's good for money. And it's definitely good for the fans. Like, everybody wants to watch those teams play each other. But for college football playoff spots, I mean, I do understand what he's saying. Like, you're just going to take more losses for your teams there instead of a non-conference week where you could mostly win. Half the teams that play the extra conference game will lose, which means you are coming up with what? They've got 16 teams. You got 8 more losses for SEC teams that will come out of that. Simple math would tell you it is actually bad for playoff spots there. So I understand why everybody is at the point that they are at. And that's kind of why, back to my original point on all this, it's brilliant by Brett Yormark. If he kind of knew where everything was going to shake out, where everybody would stand on this, it's kind of brilliant. Like, hey, I know the SEC is not going to give in because they're not stupid. They're not going to wipe out more at-large bids for themselves by throwing losses on them. And the Big Ten is going to say, well, now you've got an unfair advantage with that. We're not going to just bow down to you because that's not a good move for us long-term to anoint you as the full leaders and not just have us as co-leaders. So let me just pit you guys against each other a little bit here. Let me just do that. Thank you, David. Appreciate you. Daniel, what's up, Daniel? Daniel's got a hot take. Daniel says, my hot take, West Virginia goes 5-4 in conference play, 8-4 overall. The schedule isn't as bad as people think. I think that's a fairly hot take, but not scorching. And it's really interesting, Daniel. I was talking to a West Virginia fan on Twitter. I never did go back to see. I'm not on Twitter as much as I used to be, guys, so I don't see quite as much of the stuff that gets tweeted at me. So I didn't see the response after I went back and forth. But I had tweeted something about, or no, someone had listened to the show, I think, and said, hey, I don't think you understand with Rich Rod. Because I had said, look, with the Jake Retzloff thing, Retzloff makes more sense to me at Oklahoma State because there's more sense of urgency. Mike Gundy just took a reduced salary contracts change, right? His contract gets tweaked. He's taking less salary. He's on thin ice is more or less the idea there after last season going 3-9. He needs to win. He needs a quarterback now. West Virginia, first year of Rich Rod, you're going to have a little bit more in terms of a leash, from fans, administration, et cetera. And a West Virginia fan said, I don't think you're interpreting that right. I think 50% of our fan base is expecting big results right away. Because of the money and resources there. And I would imagine, I don't think he said this, but I would imagine because we're tired of being a 500 program, which is what we were under Neil Brown. And I was like, okay, well, I understand that. I don't think it's fair, but I understand where you're coming from. I don't think it's fair when you're turning over that much of the roster. And again, it is just year one to expect to go compete near the top of the league. But 8-4, let's see what the schedule. You're going to beat Robert Morris. You should beat Ohio, though that is at Ohio. Ask Iowa State about that. Pitt, should have won the Pitt game last year already, and this one will be at home. That's definitely winnable. But let's see. What else on the schedule do I think? At Kansas, winnable, but that's going to be tough. Utah at home, that's going to be tough. At BYU, that's going to be tough, but maybe winnable if things really go poorly with the quarterback. At UCF, probably should win that game, but it is on the road. That'd be a third game you should win. Colorado at home. Look, sorry, Buff fans. Maybe I'll get bombed in the comments. I think that's very winnable if we want to call that like 4. At Arizona State, home against Texas Tech into the year, that's tough. I don't know. I see 4 games that are like pretty winnable there. And then another at Kansas, at BYU, Utah, TCU is at home in there. At Houston, I did skip over that, didn't I? At Houston, there's another 3 or 4 that seem fairly winnable, and I would think that you're going to lose. I would think that you're going to lose to Tech. I would think you're going to lose at Arizona State. I think you're going to lose to TCU and Utah. There's your 4, or TCU and BYU rather, since that game's on the road. There's your 4 that would be. You'd have to win all the kind of toss-up games, I guess, there to get to that. I don't think it's totally crazy, but I do think it is still qualifies as a hot take. But I appreciate the faith there, Daniel. I probably overanalyzed that a little bit, people. Sorry about that. Daniel, thank you, though. You got your money's worth, my friend. Alan, what's up, Alan? Thank you for being here. Appreciate you, Alan. Alan says, John, who is the genius behind the Big Ten and the SEC restricting preseason games to each other? Not sure what sports fan is dying to see classic matchups like Minnesota, Mississippi State, or Rutgers, Vandy. Well, we do get Texas, Ohio State this year, Alan. So it's not like everything has been totally stripped down to the studs with that. They do, and I think that's been a part of the message from the SEC this week is like, hey, if you guys want more of that, then make sure that the at-large selection process is totally tailored towards us. Or the Big Ten would say, hey, if you guys want more of that, just get with us on the 4-4-2-2 thing. We'll have it every year. We'll have matchups like that because we won't be afraid to do it. Hey, Rutgers, Vandy, low key. Rutgers, Vandy, that could be, if you're a college football fan who knows ball, that could be a fun one. Diego Pavia, Rutgers has been a little bit better with another bounce back head coach, right? Another bounce back head coach at Rutgers with Schiano. So, maybe it's not quite as bad as you're making it out to be there, Alan. Just a thought. But we're at least not going to get like a scheduling agreement where they'll be playing every year and be, less afraid to have their big brands play each other the way that things are going right now, Alan.